Hello, everyone. My name is Tara Van Cleve, and I'm a business development consultant helping Oracle developers and product managers educate our users about Oracle technology. Thank you for joining us today at Cloud Coaching Office Hours, Oracle Digital Assistant and Chatbots. We're very excited to be able to share with you how intelligent bots can magnify the utility of other investments, including SaaS applications, and how they can also be built for a variety of additional needs. So if you have any questions during the webcast, please ask them in the Q&A area and we will answer them live after the presentation. This webcast is being recorded and we'll make it available shortly after the webcast concludes. Today's session will be presented by Max Grossman, Cloud Engineer at Oracle. So at this point, I will turn it over to Max.
Hello, everyone. My name is Max Grossman. I'm a cloud engineer at Oracle. I've been here roughly 2 years, and I specialize in Oracle Digital Assistant. So with that, let's get started. And I'm just going to give a brief overview of Oracle Digital Assistant, and then I'm going to go into some of the technical details and the console and development itself. So Oracle Digital Assistant essentially acts as a router between what are called skills, which are specific functionalities, and the user. So what we have here is backend systems that could be human resources, ERP, third party, that connect to these skills, which serve functions. Those kind of act as individual chatbots. So that could be something like a meeting, a survey, training, all these different functionalities that you would want to have. And then we have the next layer, which is Digital Assistant, which acts as the router. So if the user asks, I want to schedule a meeting, for example, the Digital Assistant will take that input and route it to that meeting skill where all the functionality related to meetings resides and help the user there. Some of the channels that are available are typical SaaS channels, such as like on a web page or over the phone using text message. And then other channels are Twilio, Facebook Messenger, Microsoft Teams, Slack, Alexa, voice channels, things like that. Here we have a couple of examples of what it looks like on a page or a phone. And just goes into more detail on the channels that are available. Again, SMS, Facebook Messenger, Slack, Microsoft Teams, and then voice channels as well, if that's what's needed, such as Alexa, Google Home, Oracle Voice. And this is how it would work for a business use case, for example. You would talk to the digital assistant. You would say, I want to order a new laptop. It's going to recognize what the user wants, that utterance, and it's going to take you to the procurement skill here, because that's related to procurement. Now, if say the user wants to continue that conversation and they ask, what day do I start my new job? The ODA is going to recognize that the point of the conversation has now changed, and it's going to go over to the job offer skill where all the functionality and resources for job offers resides, and respond to the user with that information. So the benefits of this is obviously modularization, being able to test and change all these skills without affecting the other services. And it really simplifies code management and enables a lot of handling of multiple issues at once. With that, I'm going to go and show the console itself now. This is the ODA console. This is where development takes place here. And I just have a couple demos that I'm going to show off and go through some of the steps of how they're developed. So first things first is you're going to want to create a skill. Again, that's what we mentioned earlier. And in this case, I've already created a pizza demo skill. It's just a pizza bot that can be downloaded. So if we click on here, we'll go into the actual skill itself. And this very first page is called intents. This is where we try and capture what the user wants through something called utterances. So here we have second. We have utterances here. They're not showing for some reason, but that's user input. So if they say something like, I want to order a pizza, it would show up here with those utterances. And then we would train the bot based off those utterances. And there's two training models. There's HT, which is linguistic, and TM, which is a machine learning. Typically, when you start off with these bots, you're going to want a HT model when you have very few utterances, but as your core of phrases increases, you're going to want to switch to TM. So if we do train, we train the bot with the utterances. And then from there, we go on to something called entities. This is where we extract information from whatever the user says. So if they say, I want to order a large cheese pizza, we're going to know the type of pizza, which in this case is cheese basic. It's going to link up with that. And we're going to know the size of the pizza, which is large. Right. So we extract those two pieces of information and we're able to use that later in the actual dialogue flow, which is the next topic. And you relate these entities to intents. So if you see here, we have this pizza entity, which has all of those other entities, type, size, toppings, cheese type, things like that. Next is the dialogue flow. This is where I would say 80% of actual development is. This is where we kind of guide the user through the conversations. So if they say, I want to order a cheese pizza, we're going to recognize the order pizza here, which is connected to this intent here, order pizza. And we're going to go to what's called a component where we display information. So we have a common response component here. These are built-in components provided by Oracle. So you can add a component like this and throw it in. So they would go to order pizza, would come here, and then it would display a list of pizzas. And then we're going to look at the entities. And if any of them filled out already, we're going to skip that question so the user doesn't have to answer them twice. So this is the dialogue flow. This is where most of the information and development actually takes place. And you relate that to intents and entities here. Next up, we have Conversation Designer. This is what you would use if you want to just quickly get a flow going before getting started and actually developing this dialogue flow. You would just throw in some questions and answers, how you want the conversation to be designed. And based off that, this conversation designer will spit back entities, intents, and like a sample dialogue flow for you to get started with. This is good for starting in the beginning when developing, and then later on you can refine it in these settings here. Next are resource bundles. This is related to intents, question and answer, and configuration. This is also useful if you want to add an additional language. So if users are speaking in multiple languages, say there's Spanish, you would be able to add a language for each of these messages that are supposed to appear. So it defaults to English, but if you want additional languages, those can be added as well. And you would do that in the resource bundled here. And this is where the intents are stored. as well. Next up is Q&A. Using a CSV file, you can upload question and answer type intents. So if you upload that, if the user were to type in, well, what hours are the stores open? You could add a question and answer here and spit back the answer 9 to 5 or something like that. And whenever the user types that in, you'll be able to display that. It's similarly developed here. You can do something called a question and answer intent. I'll just make that really quick. So we could do store hours. And then I can add an answer here saying we are open 9 to 5. Add the answer in. And then this is where you would add the utterances to train the bot. So I could put in what hours are you open? And the more utterances you have, the more accurate the bot is, the easier it is to route. So this is where the utterances go in. So I'm just going to put a few more in. And then once I have those in, I can train. So once the training is done, I can use what's called the preview function here. And this allows you to test the bots before you put them on any sort of web page. And you can also test utterances as well. So I could throw in what are your hours here. And it sees store hours, right? That intent I just made, it recognizes that that's the correct intent to go to. And if I do that in the tester here, it comes back with the answer I put in the answer intent. So for very simple questions, you can do something like that. And then if there's more functionality required, like say for order a pizza, you can go through a whole menu type system and go through that dialog flow for things related to ordering a pizza. Next up is the utterance tester. You would use this if you want to test your intents, see how they're scoring, right? If you saw back up here, when I tested it, we got 100%, but maybe the user enters something that's not an exact utterance that was added. That's where the training comes in. It's got to figure out which intent the user is trying to access. So you would run an utterance test with a bunch of utterances and you would see which intents they go to. And then based off that, you can add and retrain your bot and it gets smarter every time. So this is where you would do that. Next, we have insights and analytics. This will show you all the conversations that are with this particular skill and everything that's happened with it. So in this case, I just made this demo. There's only been 2 conversations, one completed, one incomplete. Tells you the average duration, and you can go into great detail here. You can show the intents that were used, the path that was taken, which would be those components in the dialog flow. The whole conversation itself, you can just view. It blurs out any confidential information, but I could show that conversation of what are your hours, we are open. And based off the utterance here, we can retrain the bot. So we can look at any time where it failed. For example, it hasn't failed yet, but if there was an unresolved intent or it didn't work, we could look at the utterance that caused that, pick it up, and then select which intent we want it to go in, and then retrain the bot. Next up, we have custom components. And this is if you want some additional functionality and where you would connect to a backend system. This is just a simple pizza bot demo, so there's no custom components attached. But I'm currently working on one that connects to PeopleSoft, to a PeopleSoft backend, and it uses that to grab information. And you do that by adding a service here, and you give it the name, description, and then it uses Node.js and JavaScript, and it's a TGZ file that you pack and add to this. And when you pack and add it, you'll be able to use any of those functions that you create in there within the bot. So here's an example of the code and what that looks like for custom components. And you can just upload these onto bots in order to grab backend information and any data, and then you can display that properly within the bot. There's another skill I can show you. I would have something like that. So if we go here to the custom component, this is a PeopleSoft specific bot, but you can see here you have all these services and inputs and outputs. So you would be able to call these components within the dialog flow here. So this is a built-in one. Anything that has system is a built-in component provided that you can just add. And then this right here would be a custom component, which relates to that code within the custom component here. And it would do whatever service is required there. And then you would pass in information and retrieve information through that component and be able to display that or store it for later. Back to the pizza demo. This is a data manufacturing. If you're trying to get some of those insights and analytics, you can create a data manufacturing job that can export the data every week, every day, something like that. So you can analyze the bots, retrain, and make them smarter. And next we have the configurations. This is where you would change some of the system settings of the bot. This is just the things for Q&A, custom components. This is the configuration. This is where those scores are that you saw earlier in the utterance testing. There's a confidence threshold, right? So if the user types in, I want to order a pizza, it's probably going to score high enough to break this confidence threshold of 0.4. If we raise that up to 0.9 or something like that, and we ask something, I want to order a pizza related, but it's not exact, it might not break this confidence threshold here. So this is the minimum score required to match with a user's intent when they enter something into the bot. And the higher this is, the more precise it has to be. And this is good for fine tuning intents and utterances. There's also a win margin and a bunch of other settings related to this for different things that may occur while doing the bot, like authorization, or they leave the session or something like that. And then we have custom parameters, which are basically variables we can pass into the bot that can be changed at any point, even after the bot's published. So you could put in like maybe it's like an authorization key or a username and password related to something in here. And then the bot would be able to use that. So that's a skill level. I'm going to go to the digital assistant level. So this is the next level up. So let's say you're done with the skill. It's good. You've tested it a lot. You can publish that skill, make new versions of it, things like that, export it if you want to move it to a different environment, show the routing. So publishing a skill makes it so it can no longer be changed. The only thing that can be changed are those custom parameters. After it's published, it's set in stone. So once that happens, you can go to the digital assistant here, and you can add those skills to a digital assistant that created. And this is the router level. This is where it gets routed. All the user responses will get routed. So if you see here, I have two separate skills. I have an FAQ skill, and I have a PeopleSoft requester skill. So if I were to ask a FAQ question, what would happen is it would route it to this FAQ skill here and display an answer for me. And then if I were to ask, show me my requisitions or something like that, it would route to this PeopleSoft skill here and show me the requisitions, all in the same conversation. Here we have some system intents. These are something the user may enter that you want a specific response for that's not related to the intent, so the actual skill. So if they ask for help, you can decide what you want to display to them. So maybe they want a menu of the possible skills they can use. Maybe they want an answer to a question. You can kind of guide them through that whenever they say help or exit, whenever they're done with the skill as well. And then unresolved intent, this is training to make sure if the user enters like gibberish or something like that, it properly goes to unresolved or something that, or an intent that hasn't been created yet. And then we have resource bundles on this level as well. Again, that's for maybe if you want another language, you can add that. By default, it's English, but if you want additional languages, those can be added. And then we have analytics as well. You can see analytics for the ODA itself. I haven't used this ODA, but you could see everything related to the digital assistant, and it's similar to the insights that we're able to see for the skills here. And then again, we have the settings, and we also have configurations here. As you can see, there's a lot more routing parameters than there were in the skill itself. And this has to do with routing to specific skills. So again, if someone asks an FAQ question and it scores high enough in both the requisition bot and that FAQ skill, it may route to one. It may score high enough for both. And so the ODA is going to prompt us saying, which one do you want to go to? Because it may break 0.5 on both of those skills. So this is where all the routing parameters are for the ODA itself, and fine tuning this is helpful in successfully sending the user to the correct skill and functionality they want. And again, it's a much larger, more complex version of what I showed in the configuration parameters for the skill level. And this is just a bunch of different things, like if they were to say exit or help or something and there's nothing to exit, things like that. And you can map those system intents such as help, exit, and unresolved here. So if there's a specific skill and component I want to route to, if they ask for help, I can do that. Next up is channels. This is where this is where we connect the bots to an actual user interface. So this is what it would look like on a page, for example. I have the pizza bot demo connected here to this page, and we do that through channels. So you can add a channel, and we'll just do demo, description, and then we can do the channel type, right? Facebook Messenger, Slack, Microsoft Teams, something like that. And then in this case, for the pizza demo, I'm using Oracle Web. You can enable or disable authentication. And if there's only certain domains you want allowed to use the bot, you can put those here. But in this case, the star means all domains. And we can set the session expiration time. So that's what the channel is. Once we create that channel, we get a key and we get a channel ID here. This channel ID is very important for routing. We're going to use that to basically tell this right here to route to the pizza demo skill, which is hosted here. Next up is agent integrations. If you have a customer service type bot you want to have, so if the user is asking a question, maybe the bot doesn't know the answer, you could prompt them to talk to an agent. And if that's the case, you can add agent integration. So the skill, the bot will transfer the user to a live person, human conversation. They can ask whatever questions, have that discussion, and then it will transfer them back once that conversation is done. You can also use the digital assistant as an agent, which is the reverse, if that were the case. Any sort of external applications you want to integrate, you can do here. And then system global channels are here as well. Next up is a store. This is where you can just grab a bot, pre-made bot, and edit or design it. So in this case, I grabbed the pizza bot here. which is a simple one. And then I created a clone of it here, and I just renamed it Pizza Demo. But there's a lot of bots here that can be used that can connect to other Oracle services, such as PeopleSoft, as you can see, or just ones to train and work on development and understand the ODA itself. Next up is analytics, and this is similar to what I was showing before for the digital assistant and the skills, but this shows everything in the actual ODA instance. So how many conversations that have occurred over the last 30 days, you can adjust the time, but you can kind of look at everything that's been happening within your instance. So if there's a certain skill that's like being routed to a lot or something like that, or that's what the user is frequenting most often, you may want to take a look at that. And you can just look at the completion rate for all the skills and whether that conversation was done or not. Next up is settings. There's an audit trail, so if any developers are using, you can see what they've been doing. Anyone that's using the ODA instance, authentication services. If you want to add an OAuth or OAuth 2 type authentication or something like that, you can integrate it with an identity provider as well. Feature management. This is if there's additional features you want to turn on for the bots themselves. There's something called a location entity that grabs the user's location whenever they type it in. Translation services. Let's say you have something like Google Translate that you want to use. You could add that API here along with the key and then use Google Translate maybe to translate either what the user is saying or what the bot's going to respond with rather than using a resource bundle. Then we have knowledge search and intelligent advisor. These are additional services that are related to Service Cloud. And it's helpful if the user wants to grab information about certain things. You can do knowledge search and intelligent advisor. Next up, we have documentation. This gets you to the ODA page where you can get started, overview, how to provision, tutorials, tips and tricks, basically everything you would need. So I'll just give a brief demo of the pizza bot now to show you how that works. So let's say I would type in, I want to order a cheese pizza. Not a valid pizza type because it doesn't relate to one of those types. And then it shows the list of possible pizzas you could order. So let's go for pepperoni. It'll prompt us for size, and these are the entities that I showed earlier that are related to those intents. So we could do a large pepperoni pizza. Another way for the menu to be displayed here is if they're on like text or maybe a phone on mobile, you might not have the option to click buttons like this. So you can set it up to where you can enter a number to include an option. So let's say I want tomatoes, I type in 5. They now know I want tomatoes and where do you want the pizza to be delivered? I could say home or office. I say home. You could also send your location. That was the location entity I was talking about earlier. So I'm just going to say home. And there we go. It captured all the information the user entered. And we go from there. Now I'm going to refresh and show it again, but this time I'm going to type in, I want to order a pepperoni pizza. If you see there, it didn't show that first menu because pepperoni is a valid pizza type in this case. So it extracted pepperoni, and because of that, we no longer have to show that menu with the options of the pizzas. So we just skip that step and go straight through in the dialog flow to the size question, right? So if I were to do this again and say I want to order a large pepperoni pizza, we would skip straight through all the way to the toppings question, because it extracted those pieces of information already. So we don't have to prompt or ask the user for what they are. So this could be helpful in a more practical business use case. Maybe it's like a requisition number or something like that. Say the user says, I want to look at my requisitions. You might prompt them for a number. If they say, I want to look at requisition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that, you can extract that information and just immediately show that, or take that and send it to a custom component to query the backend. So that's how this bot works. Just to show, this is also completely customizable right here. Let me actually show what it would look like on a page. This is just a simple image and the bot on top, but these are the settings you would put in if you wanted to host it on a web page. If you look here, we have the URI, which is the ODA instance itself, the one I showed that we were working on earlier here. This URI right here, and then channel ID, which is for the channel I created, which can be seen right here. So that's where that channel ID comes in. And this basically tells the bot to route, or this tells the instance to route to this bot here. And then there's all these settings. And in order to run on the page, there's a web SDK that has to be added. And that is in this JavaScript folder here. And you add that, and then it routes, and you can throw it on a web page. Obviously, different services have different types of integrations, but that's how it's done. Next up is this bot here. There's actually a digital assistant on the digital assistant page that you can use. And this is just a different looking bot. You can customize all the look and settings of the bot. So if you can see here, this one's a bit more advanced in the pizza demo. So we can ask anything. So if I say like help, it's going to give me tips and how to use the bot, right? So I could say about, and then I'm referred to by name, RDFM, which seems to listen small humans. I was developed in early 2020, and it just tells you about the bot. So let's say, let me ask like, what is an intent, right? It'll give me the information I'm looking for. This could be a Q&A. This could be something within the dialog flow itself, but it presents to me the information I want to know. And maybe there's a link or something I can add. So you can add HTML and hypertext as well to these. So if there's like an FAQ page, or they're looking for information and you have a document on it, you can add that in and send that to the user. So if I click on this, it'll take me to intents. And this is a whole table of contents for how to use Oracle Digital Assistant. And everything you need to know about it is basically within this table of contents. That's about all I have. I have some resources and additional slides to show those off. And I can start answering questions if anyone has any.
All right, thanks so much, Max. Before we get into our Q&A, if you just go to the next slide, I'd like to provide some brief information on what cloud coaching is and how to request your own cloud coach. So if you're experiencing a roadblock that isn't serious enough to warrant a service request, or maybe you just purchased OCI and you're looking for an additional onboarding session, our cloud coaching clinics pair you one-on-one with a cloud engineer to assist you on your cloud journey. So we offer workshops and demos for deeper dives on a particular service, provide sample code and provision and configuration services. So I will go ahead and drop an email in our chat so that you can let us know if you need any assistance with that. And then on the next slide, we also have some resources as well. So Our next session will be on low-code development with Apex. We hope that you'll join us again next month. We'd also like to offer you a chance to gain hands-on exposure in our cloud trial environment, and I'll drop that link as well. This promo will allow you $500 in credits, so be sure to take advantage of that link. And then we'd also love to hear any feedback that you have on today's topic or any future topics that you'd like for us to cover. So thank you everyone again for joining us. We hope to see you next time.